Ian Machado Garry versus Michael Venom Page, UFC 303.
Nobody needs to see that.
I think this is a great opportunity to really hammer home what I'm all about on this channel, because we're going to get to see the shills go into overtime to try cover up for Ian Garry.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Can't wait to see this fight.
It's a fascinating fight. Can't wait for it.
That's stupid.
We've already seen it in the last couple of days in the wake of this thing being announced. People are going crazy with the most random, crazy, insane statements that you've ever heard in your life.
One of these fellas is going to become a superstar, aren't they? Aren't they?
Well, that's retarded.
And they'll start off pretty tame in terms of Michael Bisping saying things like,
The man's flying, okay? He's undefeated in general. He's undefeated in the UFC.
What?
He's undefeated in general.
What the fuck?
he's got a YouTube channel that can barely crack 2,000 views and a couple of hundred subscribers. Nobody on the roster likes him.
We hate that guy.
Nobody in the media likes him.
We're not here to take part. We're here to take over.
Fuck off.
And we're all going to continue to cover up for him. Is that what we mean by saying that he's generally winning at life? Okay, cool.
It's going to be huge International Fight Week. There's obviously an awful lot of chat, positive and negative, around Ian Garry.
Shut the fuck up!
Ian Garry could have fought on the Manchester card. Obviously he's from Ireland, but he's living over in Brazil because he can't afford to live in Ireland or the UK or America because he doesn't really have that much money, which I guess equates to winning at life and being undefeated at life or something like that. And Michael Venom Page is obviously from the UK, so it would have been perfect to have it on the UK card. Ian Garry wanted it on the Conor McGregor card. As you know, the closer you are to the coattails, the better. We have these two boys banging on about this is where it should be. This is going to be an absolutely monumental fight.
Ian Garry just finds a way every single time, gets better every time I see him.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And whoever wins this fight is destined to be a huge superstar.
One of these fellas is going to
Become a superstar.
And as I said, this is a perfect example of shillery. This is what we're going to see more and more of. You're probably going to see a ball of it today because there's going to be a lot of videos and a lot of interviews that are coming out in the MMA world today that will be talking about this. It's a perfect opportunity to see this shillery in place. Colby Covington gets called vile and deplorable pretty much in every interview when an ex-fighter or a media member or a commentator talks about him.
Colby said some deplorable things about his wife.
It's all true.
John Jones gets called out for all sorts of shit.
I am not gay. I have relationships with women and sex with men.
But when it comes to Ian Garry, everything kind of gets swept under the rug and he's a polarizing figure. A lot of attention on his name, some good, some bad. I would argue the majority is bad. So many polls across social media that come out with these questions, these random kind of clickbait things like who's the most hated person in the UFC? The dude is miles ahead of everyone when it comes to them polls. So just in terms of reading the room and understanding gaslighting, that's what these lads are doing right now. So in terms of mental retardation, we see a lot of it at play within this video, and a lot of it comes from TNT Sports MMA coverage in general.
I think a big win for either man here would absolutely torpedo them to the top of the tree, and I wouldn't be surprised if the winner was sitting ringside in Manchester waiting to go nose to nose with the champion at the end of the night. That's how big a fight this is.
Imagine thinking that the winner of MVP versus Ian Garry is going to be torpedoed to the top of the tree in terms of the welterweight division. And imagine thinking that the winner of this fight is going to be sitting at the side of the octagon when Leon fights Belal for the championship in Manchester, and that they're going to get into the octagon and go nose to nose with the champion. Screams of retardation, screams of not understanding the game, and to be even talking about these two lads and this fight as some sort of an elimination or a contender shot. It's crazy to me. It's absolutely mental.
We are going to see a Britain versus Ireland UFC title fight, I believe it, before the end of the year.
Sorry, what?
Britain versus Ireland UFC title fight.
Calm the fuck down.
A Britain versus Ireland UFC title fight before the end of the year. So we check the notes. Okay, we got to build this fight up to be something way bigger than it is. Check. We got to brush everything under the carpet in terms of Ian Garry going after the likes of Neil Magny. The man almost lost his child because of Ian Garry. Then he goes after Geoff Neal. This guy is making t-shirts and sneering about it online. He goes after the likes of a walk-in Buckley. Says that he's only going to fight up and he's never going to fight down. And
why would I look down when I'm going this way?
Yeah.
You should be calling me out because I'm up there.
Yeah, right.
That's the right thing.
That's the right
But
thing.
why would I go backwards when I'm trying to be the best in the world?
Because I got a
That
name.
does not. I don't give a fuck if you got a name.
Damn,
if your ranking's not higher than mine, nothing to do.
You want nothing to.
5 minutes later.
Ian Garry, he is going to be taking on the number 13 ranked Michael Venom Page.
If your ranking's not higher than mine, nothing to do.
You want nothing to.
Nice.
now he's fighting someone who's down around 13th or 14th. Hypocritical. Yes, let's sweep that all under the rug. No problem there. And let's make some insanely slow and retarded statements. Okay, check. We have that there. Ireland versus Britain for the welterweight championship of the world by the end of the year. And you're kind of thinking, how could the coverage of MVP versus Ian Garry get any worse over here on TNT Sports?
Listen, anything with Conor on is going to be pretty special, but I know a few people that have reached out to me since this was announced saying that is it. I am definitely going to Vegas now because it's a fight people want to see live.
Man, this is some bullshit!
So just ask yourself the question whilst watching this video. If this was any other fighter out there, right? Usually it's the ones who go against the grain, who go against the political landscape which most of the media kind of land in. If it's Colby Covington, if it's Sean Strickland, if it's Bryce Mitchell, and they make these sort of pronouncements like Ian Garry.
The young prospect coming up who's 14-0, who's 7-0 in the UFC, who's doing everything he said he would. That's the guy who gets to choose his next opponent. That's the guy who gets to choose his next opponent.
Then we see it play out. He talks about fighting up. He has to go all the way down. He's got to accept a fight that should never have been in his mind. In his mind, he had these visions of grandeur where he was fighting top twos and top threes. Now he's fighting a guy who just came into the UFC, who he was laughing at recently.
Michael Venom Page. Do you see him as a guy that could maybe break into the rankings soon and maybe even a future opponent for you one day?
Who's he fighting next?
Kevin Holland in Miami.
There's no way he beats Kevin Holland. So no. There's no way.
So he's fighting all the way down, but he still has the power in his mind because he's such a huge star. How are these guys going to cover it? That's what I want to know. How are they going to cover it?
But also, I've got to take my hat off a little bit, Mike, to Ian Garry, because technically, he's fighting down the rankings. And I admire that.
So now the narrative has changed from only fighting up and being one of the top contenders to now we admire him for going down the rankings. He's really showing his stoicism in terms of taking these lower fights again. This is the epitome of shillery. This is the epitome of contradictory behavior. No one is mentioning the fact that Ian Garry did all this shit to previous opponents. No one is going to mention the fact that just 6 to 8 months ago he was adamant that he was only accepting a fight against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy shut that down real quick. Told him to jog on. I have no fucking idea who you are, bro. Stop following me around. Stop trying to hug me and stop trying to be whiny. Then he moved over to Colby Covington. Started telling lies about that the contract was sent out to Colby. Colby says no contract came out, otherwise I would have signed it. He wants these guys that have no interest in him. It's a kind of a Gilbert Burns situation where his wife has to actually go and knock on the door and say, listen, bro, he doesn't want to hang out with you. No one brings it up. If for any other fighter, they bring it up all the time. For Sean Strickland, Colby Covington, Bryce Mitchell, all their indiscretions in the past, all statements that they have made, and anything negative that they have done gets brought up in every single interview, but not Ian Garry. Interesting, very interesting take, and I think this is a massive opportunity to watch the narrative over the course of the next couple of weeks on how everyone is going to shill for Ian Garry and have selective memory and not talk about the shit that he's done in the past. This is not an exciting fight. This is not a sick fight. This is not a title eliminator. This is literally Ian Garry fighting MVP because no one else wanted to fight him. And over the course of the next 5 weeks, we get to see the MMA media, ex-fighters, and the community in general run cover for the most hated man on the roster.